themselves or spiritual knowledge too. So
I don't know. I think they can read people's minds too, because they can probably tell what people are out there who would not hurt them, or, you know, trying to take advantage of them, or the ones that would go out there and try killing them. Again, you know, we don't know what we're actually dealing with. At least my feeling is we don't actually know if they're actually a Bigfoot or something else. And, you know, again, you know, maybe those people disappeared out in the forest, found out really what they were, because maybe they enticed the whatever it is to show its true form, and then they were gone.
Well, all I know is especially up here, we have a logbook, and we have people coming in the general store all the time because Barb works there, and people are always coming frantically and saying they just saw something run down the road, or someone was throwing rocks at them. They could saw that there's a big ape out in the woods. That was the latest one. This big ape kept throwing rocks at us. You know, that's their description. It was a bunch of Russians. You know, I'd never seen anything like that before.
Well, I said, no, don't. Samantha, I can say that because when we ran into the one up in the Canadian Rockies, when we were getting in the car after our 2-mile roughly run back to the car, well, as I was taking off, and I remember that whatever it was, bending that tree over like it was nothing. You know, and then it threw a rock, and unfortunately, it was my wife's new car, and, you know, till this day, she thinks I was out drinking, and I don't drink, and I ran into something. I never ran into anything. It threw a huge rock and put a dent in her new car. She still doesn't believe it. You know, I can sit here to the day I die and say, hey, Linda, I saw a Bigfoot. You know, my friend saw it. It chased after us, and I'm not the one that put the dent in your car. It did. Go after him. Don't yell at me about it.
Well, I hope it's not the only experience you'll have. I hope you do have another experience at some point.
No, unless it comes into my bedroom, because I'll tell you something. I grew up in a family. We went camping every weekend, you know, all over between Washington, Oregon, California, Montana. All summer long, we would go camping. I grew up that way. I have 8 kids. I used to go camping a lot. And after my thing up in the Canadian Rockies, I have been into any forest other than the 2 acres of cedars I have on my own property. I have not been out in the woods at all. You couldn't get me out in the woods after that experience. You couldn't pay me.
Yeah, you know, maybe something might change in the future. Who knows?
I don't know. Anyway, I'm really sorry I had to jump in there, and, you know, we're going to get you back on. Would the 27th work for you? Because I'd really like to get you on.
Yeah, that would be great. There's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah, and you know, just people right now. I have 3 different chat groups open, one on speaker and a couple on some of the other apps, you know, and people are listening, and, you know, and they're enjoying it. I'm getting text messages on my phone, people listening to it. They really like it when you're on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I enjoy talking about it, so it's mutual.
Okay, I'm going to have to jump out of here, but again, I'll log you in. I'll send you email the next day or two. Let's lock it in and go 2 hours. You know, and we'll go on the 27th and we'll talk.
Sounds great.
Okay, my friend. Both of you guys have a great evening and a great holiday coming up.
Thanks, Gary. Well, you too. Take care.
Okay, take care. Mm-hmm. Now, what is your impression? Do you think a Bigfoot is actually a Bigfoot? Or do you think they could be shape-shifting? These portals, could they be coming from another universe and shape-shifting into something that they known from way back, even back, when the Indians, you know, ruled the country. Something that they knew that would scare people out of the area. What are they doing in the forest anyway? I mean, you know, why do certain people see them and certain people don't encounter them? Do they shape-shift into other animals too, like cougars or mountain lions or bear or, you know, again, are they aliens? Again, like a guest I had on, you know, after he had his encounter of abduction, all of a sudden started seeing owls, and he wrote a book about owls. And when he was on the show and I started asking these questions, I think I kind of really confused the poor guy because, you know, if you're being abducted and they're brain scanning you and maybe reading all your thoughts, if you're a park ranger and you're infatuated with owls, that might be a good subject, right? You see an alien when you're out there. They say, okay, well, you know what? He doesn't see the alien. He sees an owl in its place. I don't know. It'd be really cool to have, and I hope he comes on the 27th, Samantha Ritchie. I mean, the little people, Bigfoot, and all the information, the pictures he's, taking time to prove that they do exist. And he's a great guest. Anyway, we got another, I believe this is another guest, Liz. Okay, do we have Liz here?
I'm here.
Well, how you doing, kid?
I'm good.
Well, this is Liz, and you want to tell everybody your last name and what some of the jobs you've held?
My last name is Reeder, and I have been an EMT and for 10 years. I was a police officer for 16 years. Now I am retired, and I write books.
Oh, boy, do you write books and you make jewelry. Now, I got to ask you a question. Here you are, a lovely-looking woman. You get out of high school. What made you decide you wanted to be a paramedic?
There were a lot of health issues with family members, and it just seemed like the right road to go down was emergency medicine. My father had begun training as an EMT before he got sick. So I had all of his textbooks and everything, and I would go through those, and I loved it. So that just seemed like the right path for me.
Okay, so you were a paramedic and stuff like that. Was that a emotional type of job that, when you were done with your shift? I mean, if you had somebody, you went into, for example, and somebody passed on from a car accident or their house caught on fire or whatever, you had to go, or they just, died on the pot, I hate to say. Was it hard emotionally to go home and drop that baggage off?
For me, I'm able to detach, which is something that some people can't do. But for me, it was a matter of go in and just be able to completely detach. It was rarely there was emotion involved. There were a few cases where, of course, it bothers you. But for the most part, I was able to just kind of leave that at the job and go home and, work was work and home was home.
Well, how again, what type of training is if somebody wants to be a paramedic? I know that's what my daughter does. She works at the hospital right now, not in that type of field, but she wants to go, maybe this coming summer and, become a paramedic. What all is involved for somebody to become a paramedic? And is it a worthwhile career?
It is absolutely a worthwhile career. You go through a combination of technical training, and depending on EMT or paramedic, you go on through additional training and college level courses. And that makes it easier than if you want to transition into or continue on your medical career and go ahead and go to medical school. You already have that background and that training, which is immensely helpful if you decide to do that.
Now, did you work for a company or did you work for the county?
I did all of my training through a county hospital, and it was, a small rural county. It does have a pretty significant college in it, and so we did have a lot of college students and things like that. But we had a lot of out in the middle of nowhere where it would take 30, 45 minutes to even find where the person was.
Now, that is really critical because isn't it the first 5 or 6 minutes can make a major difference if somebody, is going to survive or not on, say, a heart attack or anything like that?
Absolutely. They have what is called the golden hour, and that first hour after the incident is absolutely the most critical for treatment and diagnosis. And, that, like living out where I live, ambulance could be anywhere from 15 minutes away to an hour away, depending on what other runs they're on, if they've had to transport to a hospital, because we don't have a general hospital inside the county I live in. We have the hospital on the base, but if you are not military and whatever's happened is not an emergency, you have to go to a hospital outside the county.
Oh, wow.
So that adds to a lot of transport time.
That is really scary because, that's one thing, when I decided where I moved this last time, because I'm getting older, I made a point of finding a location. And thank God up here where I live, they built a hospital back about 8 years ago, a new huge hospital. But before that, depending on if I had, let's say I had a heart attack. I live in a place called Gig Harbor, Washington. And before they built the new hospital, then that meant I would have to go, that's not that far, maybe 10 miles, but I would have to go what they call over a bridge. It's called the Narrows Bridge. And rush hour traffic, there is times you could be backlogged for an hour going over that bridge. That scared me. Or the other way, there's a place where Bremerton is, where the Bremerton Naval Shipyard is. There's the hospital over that way. But again, you're talking about 20 miles away, which is not that far. But again, traffic time, you could be, an hour and a half, hour to the hospital. And I really realized, living in Tacoma before that, there was hospitals all over the place. So if you had a problem, you were in the hospital within 10 minutes.
Right. I'm fortunate because my late husband was military. So I have military privilege on the base and can go there for medical care. But if there's something that happens, if it is a serious heart attack, if there is a serious car accident, we have a great working relationship with the base. And if there is that, elevated level of emergency, they do without hesitation accept civilian patients on the base because they do recognize, hey, we're the closest hospital, and sometimes that's what you need.
Out of curiosity, what's your population in your county? Why they don't have a hospital?
The county-wide population is under 55,000.
Okay, so how many miles is it? Is it a small county?
It's the county size is about 550 square miles.
I guess it's not very populated then.
It's really not, and that population of 55,000 includes the over 10,000 on the base and the 5,000 inside one of the cities, and another 2,000 or 3,000 in the different towns scattered throughout. So, we're a farming county. That's what's here.
Kind of reminds
me outside of the town. It's farms or it's a national forest.
Kind of reminds me of Mayberry RFD. It's just kind of a small communities around there, little small towns of population. What, about 500,000 people? That's
exactly it. Our largest city outside of the base has about 5,000 people in it, in the entire county.
Wow. Now, getting going from being a paramedic or EMT, going into being, a deputy sheriff, what in your mind, girl, how could you go from one thing all of a sudden, go into this other field? What hit you to make you get that desire and to make that move?
That law enforcement was something that I'd always been interested in, but it was one of those things I didn't really see as happening for some reason. And as bad as this sounds, I was having a conversation with someone I was dating at the time, and he'd been in a serious car accident years prior to that and would not have been able to be a police officer. And he was talking about how he had always wanted to be one, and I said, well, so did I, and we were talking about that and got to a point where he's like, well, if you became a police officer, I really wouldn't want you to be a police officer. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm I was actually engaged to him at the time. I'm thinking, okay,